says it's on or not on these?
No. The button up
popped
is
up.
on.
Up is on.
Out is on.
All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6:08. We're starting just a little bit late. I'd like to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Everyone can stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Campbell.
Do we have-
Christian.
Go ahead.
Christian. Lacey.
Here.
Koskela. Here. DeSessa.
Here.
Wallace.
Here.
Everly.
Here.
Kinnaman.
Here.
Okonski.
Here. Okay, I'd like to please excuse or have a motion to excuse Ms. Campbell. And
I'll make the motion.
I didn't hear anybody say anything about.
Yeah, I've texted him too, so
All right.
I'll make the motion for excusing Campbell.
I will second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, approval of the agenda for May 22nd, 2024.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
I approve, I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, so moved. All right, the minutes for April 24th, 2024. I was not here, so I cannot vote on that. However, we have an amendment to show Mr. Jim Koskela as being excused versus unexcused.
I will so move
You
with
can't-
then.
Wait, you can't modify these minutes that way.
Okay?
What we can do is, we can make a motion in this meeting to excuse him from the past meeting, but we can't modify these minutes,
Okay? I guess then we'll do that as new business.
okay?
Okay. Then we need a motion for approval of minutes as written for April 24th, 2024.
So moved.
Second. Go ahead and give it to her.
Second.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, so
Did
moved.
Everly second that, excuse me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I have a volunteer to read our statement of purpose?
I can do that. Statement of purpose. The mission of the Holly Village government is to enhance our community's quality of life. Our organization strives for quality services, responsive action to citizen requests, and a cost-effective government. We promote citizen participation, proactive decision-making, and environmental quality. Most importantly, we shall always serve the citizens of Holly. The Village of Holly will be a prestigious historical village that is a green residential oasis from the city and the center of commerce and activity for the region.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 6, public comments. Is there anyone in the public that would like to come before the committee and state anything? Don't be shy.
Don't everybody rush at once.
Yeah.
All right, seeing no movement in that activity, we'll move on to old business. Old business is a discussion, a continuation of the capital improvement process. And since I haven't been here, I don't know what has transpired so far.
Well, I just need to take this call. I apologize, and I'll be right back with you.
We can tell you.
Yep.
Have at it.
Well, we all came with ideas of things that we thought were priorities for big spending items. And then Jeremy had the list that came from parks and the list that came from administration. And so he basically, we had some good rousing conversation, and this is the outcome. And if I read this right, then we're gonna prioritize, or assign money over years, or
Okay,
make our recommendations.
The minutes themselves had our suggested lists of things, and so that's in the minutes from last time.
This is what came from administration, and this is what came from DDA.
I apologize.
so then the plan of attack for tonight is then to take the combined list of what you ended up with from last month's meeting, and then prioritize this list in its entirety, or,
Well,
you know.
Mr.
Now
Chair.
that he's
if-
back, maybe we
He's
could
back.
let Jeremy.
Yep, I apologize. I had a crew on that call there. So basically, tonight's scope of the meeting is, last month we met and we all discussed our goals and wishes that we'd like to see on the capital improvement plan. Those items were listed into a spreadsheet, just like we talked about. And some of them have dollar amounts of what they are estimated to cost in the future. Tonight's meeting is just to kind of go through that list, make sure that the list meets the Planning Commission's desires. And then the next step would be to let this list be released to Rowe and put that into a formula for the North Branch example that they gave us early on in, I think it was November or December when we first started this process in depth. So, you know, I really don't know about itemizing tonight. I think it's more of if the Planning Commission approves what's on the list, or if they want to make additions or subtractions, then we take that approach. If everything is the way that they want it to be, then the next step would be to send it off to Rowe, have Rowe work their magic on it, put it together in a package, bring it back either at the next meeting, I don't know if they'll need two, but then that meeting, then we would go through and deep dive it, critique it a little further for that next step.
Do we need, I guess, of this list, if we are going to have more discussion, obviously, do we need to then send this back to council to get permission for the expenditure to send it to Rowe?
I don't believe so, but I think we're authorized to send this to Rowe because it's already been approved by administration to start the process. So
Okay.
we haven't involved Rowe up to this point to save the village a little bit of money. But if we're at the point now where we're happy and, you know, this is preliminary, right? This is our very first one. It's not going to be this extensive, long list. These are baby steps, and then Rowe will put it together in a package. And then every year, we will go back to this document. It's a live document, and that's where we, on that annual review, prioritize, itemize, remove or add, fluctuate the list from there. Today's discussion is really just making sure that something wasn't missed on the list, not in any kind of particular order, and then if we all agree that it's acceptable, send it off to that next step for Rowe for putting it into a document.
Okay, I guess the next question would be, and it seems to me I did read something in that regard. My question is, we have numbers here that are, you know, alleged supposed budgetary, somewhat good numbers. Is council going to make any information available to know that they are going to start setting aside bucket money into different categories?
Well, I think that goes to
Is it
administration.
just a blind study, basically?
Well, I think a couple of these items are things that we have discussed for the upcoming budget year. Some of them are projects that are self-funded and in process, like the depot and the bathrooms are an item that's a DDA item that's already built into their budget. And so some of these things are already in first-year column by nature of where we're at. And so I think that's going to kind of dictate some of it initially.
Well, with that being said, then, I would think then, going to row, we kind of need to shape really what they're gonna put in, because there's no sense in having them spend money, put anything into the CPI if it's already stages in process as far as monies and, you know.
Well, it does need to be in the CPI because it's first year. The 24, 25 items are, I mean, we're going to vote on that budget in a month.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's a piece of the process here that we're missing, and I really appreciate the stuff that we got from North Branch. What they did was project evaluation, and they had a couple of tiers of evaluation. So what they did is they looked at, like our list, and they determined what was the need. Is it immediate? Is it a medium need? Is it a high need? Are the projects mandated by law or a court action? Is it a community aesthetic? Is it a compliance with the village master plan? Is it addressing a threat to public health or safety? And then the next tier that they have on here is address issues that are a common complaint by residents, promotes commercial or industrial base, or leverage of grant funds. So at least that gives you some steps, yeah, that,
Criteria, basically. that
for
you're
looking at these.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think one thing that we talked about doing, it will be part of this process, as I understand it moving forward, is certainly prioritizing this stuff, but also once we get to it, and by the way, Jeremy, thanks for putting this starter stuff together, but obviously we'll need at some point to identify these funds, the source of these funds exactly. It's one thing to put the amounts, the estimated amounts, but I think we need to actually at some point say, oh yeah, this $30,000, that's how much it's gonna cost, but this is coming from whatever funding source.
So I did do that with the crosswalk upgrades throughout the village, 50,000. They did receive 30,000 from one of the cannabis companies for that project. So that is in the works for next year's process, I believe, along with one of the tot lots, parking upgrade, new restrooms, and the depot are all, I believe, prioritized or itemized to be part of the 2024-2025 budget.
Okay.
So then you would take what's left of that list and say, off of, what we receive from North Branch, develop a long-range program in which physical objects are planned, prioritized, and implemented in an orderly manner. Coordinate the capital-related projects of the various village departments, boards, and commissions to assure appropriate distribution, and then assist the village president and village council in determination of project requests and funding sources regarding short and long term. So I don't think that this entity, has the authority or power to do it. I think we just kind of create the list, put it in our kind of order, and then we ship it to council. Once it's presented in a packet like this, then council will make the determination of walkability trails for the 2025-2026 budget year will be allocated X amount of dollars. I think that's, and I'm super new to this process too, and I'm kind of learning as we go, but that was the takeaway that I had from it being discussed with me when I was putting it together.
And I don't argue that point, but just to make the point, Jeremy, from my
Yes, sir.
understanding from Roe earlier, that at some point, that just needs to be part of this process that we see. We may not approve it, but in the documents before us, we have this list, which is great, but the actual funding sources just identified for our, not just so FYI.
Okay.
I understand we don't approve it, that's
Oh, okay.
council's job.
So-
Anyway,
It's kind of suggested funding sources possibly.
Yes.
Where might this money come from? you know, we could easily have a column, I would say, that does that kind of thing.
Well, and that's what, can we just get blanks of this and fill in our stuff?
Well,
Yeah, I know.
that's what Roe will
That,
create
is this what
for
Roe
us.
will do? Because the
Yes.
summary of
Yes.
the project descriptions has, okay, it's for Parks and Recs, it's gonna be a school connection, the
Yep.
category, the start date, how much it's gonna cost, where the money's coming from, a description. All of that is in these little boxes here for each
And
thing.
then just a question, Jeremy, real quick. I mean, so if there's not a number on here right now, that's something that's in the process or just unable to come up with it?
No, I just didn't have time, and that's on me. I didn't have the time to get the information from all the other entities, like the tot lots for Cyclone. I know Parks has been discussing this, but I just haven't been able to network with Parks and determine. And also, there's a tribute memorial thing going on, and there is a member on that committee from Parks that is talking about using the money that they have for the tot lots to use at the Cyclone Park here. So I don't even know if Parks knows what they're doing with their money yet, or where, I think they know that they're doing a tot lot, but maybe they chose Cyclone or Lakeside. And from talking to the one lady from the Parks and Joe, they were saying that because Lakeside just got the the new updated play structure, that they were looking to kind of bolster this park a little bit, and they were talking about putting the tot lot here. So it was really just, didn't have all the information at the time that the meeting came out. And then the other one, Falk Road site. I don't know if you can even put a number on that, right? I mean, that could be anywhere from, 10,000 to 10 million, really. I think we would probably need some additional resources on that, as far as additional resources of additional people maybe coming to the table with, in order to do X, Y, and Z, you are gonna need this amount, right? So I know it was a hot topic with the commission here, so I just wanted to make sure it ended up on the list, first of all. And then secondly, as we're digesting this and moving forward, it may be 2028, 2029 before the fundage to do a fence around the property, we've raised enough money or have got enough money through grants or putting money allowance from the side to put that fence up, right? So,
But they don't want a fence,
right, I was just using that as an example, right?
which is a reason why it's a good thing you slow the process down, because they don't want a fence.
And at one point they did, right?
No, they
Oh, they
didn't. They
didn't.
never have.
Oh.
Patrick Feeney, who doesn't even live there, stood up in a meeting and said, well, why don't we put a fence around it?
I think I was there when I heard that, so maybe that's why in my mind I thought that. Really, my goal for tonight and for this process, when we started in the beginning, we knew it was not gonna be something quick and easy. It was really just getting the list on paper, making sure that the commission here tonight was happy with the list, and then getting our experts at Roe to come in and help us with the next steps, because I am not educated or trained in this process. I was just trying to get the ball rolling, getting
Sure.
us started, and then once we were to a point where we really didn't know what to do next, well, that's when we bring in our expert, Roe, to help guide us. And if it's just for one meeting and they give us a to-do list of, okay, this looks great, but now we need X, Y, and Z, well, then that next meeting, we come back without Roe and we do the X, Y, and Z, right? So, it's a learning process for all of us in this. I think really our big takeaway is we got the process started. Now we got somewhat of a list. What do we do next, right? And whether we prioritize it, like Ms. Everly said, or do we put fundage to it? I think why tonight's meeting is really just look at the list. If there's anything that we need to add or deduct, then we'll make that correction. And then my recommendation would be to get Roe into the building and give us next suggestions. And if he's unable to come in, maybe I do a phone conference with him, explain the process where we're at now, and he gives me that suggestion that I either bring back here or do and have prepared for the next meeting. So, not to be redundant, but I was just kind of hoping that we would be able to look at the list tonight, and if it satisfied you with that, then, and there could be some additions later on, and that, it's a live document. We are allowed to add and subtract, right? So it's really just getting a basis, a starting point.
I guess my question is, I'm looking at the amounts of projected costs.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else besides the depot adds up to 630,000, but we're going to spend 1.8 million of taxpayers' money to move the depot?
No, that's not correct.
Oh, that's what it says.
Okay,
So hold
I
on.
can maybe give you a little bit on the depot.
Sure, thank you.
Everything that's come in with the depot has been external funding. It's been through grants and fundraising and those kinds of things. It is not taxpayer dollars.
Okay, so all of it, we've raised 1.8 million to do that? How much
We
have
are
we raised?
currently at about half of that.
Okay,
And it is
Phase
a
project.
multi-phase project that this full amount is through like phase 3 or 4, when the entire project is completed. Phase 1 is to get it relocated.
yes. And
Okay.
how much is that going to cost?
I think we have the money to do that
Oh,
project.
Yeah,
yes,
that was from
Okay.
grants.
yeah.
Also.
I think the total cost is going to be a little over 4,
Okay,
which includes the move, which is
And the foundation.
around 3, and then a foundation to be put in, and some incidentals that go with making that process happen.
so with that 400,000, where is the rest of the money coming? Are we still fundraising for that? Because I haven't seen anything lately that has anything to do with
It's,
fundraising for this.
a lot of it's grants that,
Okay.
and I talked with Nick today, and he shared with me some other grants that are coming in that puts
Okay.
us at the halfway point on this.
Okay, so
And I
those are,
think-
that's guaranteed money
Wait,
that
the
we already
halfway of
have?
the 1.8
Yes.
or the halfway of the 400?
Yeah,
Halfway to the
1.8.
1.8.
1.8, okay.
Yes.
And if I understood, like from your standpoint there.
Yeah.
The numbers on this sheet
Yes.
are projected numbers for the project, has nothing to do with the funding source.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
All the
Doesn't say
sources,
yeah.
taxpayers.
all the sources will be most likely outside money or grants. Most likely, very little of it coming from tax base, just because there isn't anything to draw from at this time.
Right.
okay, thank
So
you.
the budget, I believe, was about 1,200 in the green for the projected 2024, 2025 budget for the Village of Holly for what the council will be voting on in a few weeks.
Right.
So we don't have money to dump into this. So at nowhere in this document does it say these funds will
Yes.
come from taxpayers.
That's- okay.
These are just projected costs of what we anticipate that project will cost, whether we get grant money or we use a
Donations.
rainy fund.
Anything like that.
Yes.
Right. And, go ahead.
My question is kind of along the lines of yours with the council. Why are we looking at DDA money?
Yeah,
It's not DDA money, it was a project. It was a capital improvement project.
Oh, but
and
there's other things on here. There was this whole list of stuff from the DDA.
And they're all on there.
Right,
If-
but that's what I'm saying. Why are we looking at that?
Well, because if
they-
you look at the capital improvement plan from the example that we got from North Branch,
Uh-huh.
the DDA is listed on there with street improvements.
Okay,
So they are a contributor to the capital improvement plan. It's just how the DDA chooses to delegate their money. Now, they have chosen to delegate money for these projects that Nick gave to me, that they are moving forward with, and that's how we got them
So-
on the list.
do they have a prioritization and a budget that, we could just
Oh, yeah,
meld
that's-
into this one rather than us coming up and having Roe put numbers under their things and then they say,
So Roe won't be putting any numbers. That'll be our process, right?
okay,
Roe will help package our product in a professional way.
Okay.
Kind of like what they did here.
okay,
Right.
well,
So their list is, you gotta remember, this list has been ongoing for about 10 years.
right.
So they are leaps and bounds of where we are today. I would love to get a copy of their first draft, because I think that would help educate us on where we're at compared to something that's been in process for many years.
By looking at theirs, it almost looks like it's in a spreadsheet type formula.
Yep.
Would it be something that someone could ask and say, hey, could we get a blank,
Template.
form?
Well, it would have to come from Roe because it's their client, right? And then this is an Excel form that I handed out tonight. It just doesn't have any equations built into it, because it's just the preliminary list.
Mr. Assessor.
Yeah, just a question, if we wanted to add an item tonight, Mr. Chair or Jeremy, how would we do that? Is it a motion? Can we just bring it up in
No, I think,
discussion?
I think we just bring it up in discussion.
I think this whole thing is developed through consensus at this
Okay.
point, so.
Well, I would at least like us to entertain the idea of a skating rink that people in the community, including Cheryl, have brought up. To me, I bring it up because, I mean, there was some discussion, I think, of even putting it here on this property somewhere if it would fit. But even if not here, it seems to me that something like that could be done with not a lot of money comparatively to other projects.
Skating in what manner?
skate park.
Ice.
A skate park,
A skate park?
yeah, skateboard
Is
park.
that on?
A skateboard park or an ice skating rink?
Well, as I
'cause-
understand, ice skating?
No, skateboard park, that's what I want, a skateboard.
No ice rink, okay.
No ice rink, I want a skateboard
Well,
park.
then, yeah,
They both have been asked from the public to have.
Yeah, right.
But I think that's a
That's true.
parks issue, isn't it? Because they would have to
We had
decide
that
that,
at
yeah.
one point over at Lakes.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
that's what I was just gonna say.
it's an
We
item
had
that can
that,
easily
a
be
skate
put on the
park.
list and, get prioritized however,
Did
Yeah.
that, other than decay, be removed
It
because
was
of liability?
vandalized quite a bit.
It's pretty
The
common.
skate park that was at Lakeside for years, it was vandalized
Yeah.
quite a bit, and then
I thought there was
a lot of it then deteriorated.
Yeah, I thought there was a liability issue. also.
Yes.
And I do
No,
think that it was in a
there's
poor
not.
location.
You can have insurance, other
Yeah.
cities have insurance for skate parks, so
Yeah.
you can have what you want, pay for it.
It was in a poor location as well.
I
It was,
think it's something to at least put on the list.
I think it's
You know.
something we hear over and over and over again from the community, something specific for the teenagers to do.
Yeah.
If I had my way, Screw Cloud Cannabis, I'd put it right there. Right there on Saginaw Street. We could watch them all day long. And they wouldn't vandalize it.
yeah.
No, Mr. Chairman, for this, I see a lot, I actually don't know what RBC is. RBC removal microfilter installation.
Yeah, that was from Brian Clausen from the wastewater. I would hate to speculate what that means. That was just on his form here.
That was me.
RBC
I brought it up.
Well, it's on his too. This is from administration.
Right,
RBC
it's on
removal.
his list.
And
I can
microfilter.
tell you that's an item that is in the new budget as well. That is
Very important.
a water department item. It is, if this is what I think it was, it's replacement of all of the sands and stuff in the
Okay,
filtration.
the media system, yeah.
A media
Okay.
system, yes, in,
The wastewater. Or-
now, does this one say wastewater?
This one
or
says wastewater.
Well, yeah, wastewater treatment plant. Microfilter, yeah.
The
They,
art-
they replaced one of those a couple of years ago, and this is the other one that needs replaced. And so, it's a capital item. We know that it's already on administration's list of something that's
Okay.
being built into a budget. So it goes into this plan that we are working on.
So Google says it is a rotating biological contractor, is an RBC for biological wastewater treatment system that uses rotating discs to remove pollutants from wastewater.
I looked it up and I saw WW, and I'm like, why are we putting this at Waterworks? And I was like, but it's wastewater treatment plant is what it is.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, I guess taking along with that, I think a lot of these things, Falk Road dump being one of them, or the site, are just more like cosmetic things. Is that something, or for leisure? So I don't see a lot of like, I was thinking, fill cracks in the roads, or all of our pump stations. I think we have 13 pump stations here, and all pump, you always hear Brian say, well, they're gonna be breaking soon.
Yeah.
Is that stuff that we need to just bring you up to, or?
I think those are
That's a capital improvement.
normal maintenance kind of things. I would think that if we're running through this and we get to, next year and Brian goes, I think we need to work on replacing 2 pumps in the next year, or lift stations or whatever, that gets factored into the remix that we do annually to this thing.
Okay. So it wouldn't necessarily behoove us to list that out then, it wouldn't have any.
It's not something that's on the radar at the moment
Okay.
as an item that's being actually considered,
Okay.
you know?
And it does
No.
say in the packet that it is allowed. Land or non-structural improvements, new structures, major repairs, 5,000 or more, major replacements, 5,000 or more, non-motorized equipment, 5,000 or more, new and expanded physical facilities for the community which are relatively large in size, expense, large-scale rehabilitation or replacement of existing facilities. It goes on what it would be, and that's just going off of their document. So
Okay.
I don't think it's what you can and cannot put on the list. I think it's
Right.
really community-based.
Because like for me, it's those things that are gonna set us back big time, or we lose one of the pumping stations, or lift stations, I guess is what the correct term is, you said. That would hurt. It's all of a sudden a huge expenditure.
To your point, that's where you go back to evaluating what's more
Prioritize.
important. I would prioritize a crosswalk over a tot lot.
Precisely, okay.
You would
Yes.
prioritize the pumps over a sidewalk
Yep.
enhancement.
Okay.
That's the evaluation piece that we need.
Jim, did you categorize the Falk Road dump as cosmetic, did I hear?
No, I said other than, I said there were a couple things, but
Okay.
a lot of the other stuff was cosmetic, not to include
Gotcha.
the Falk Road stuff.
Well, and I would actually tell you that sidewalks are not just a cosmetic issue.
Safety for
You know,
sure.
There's safety, there's deterioration to the point that they are not walkable. And there are sections of the community that do not have sidewalks.
Right.
And so to begin to put that, even if it's a rolling thing, that you've always got sidewalks on there, and in 25, 26, or even 24, 25, you go, we are going to take care of the sidewalks on Maple Street. And in 25, 26, the next year, we're going to prioritize the sidewalks in another section, or, you know, and it's kind of like what we've started looking at with some of the road infrastructure, the water and sewer infrastructure, where we've evaluated or had evaluated what is the worst sections we've got, and that was created
The oldest.
into a proposal that Rowe has submitted to the state to try and get us grant funding to get that done. Those were specific areas that were targeted for that purpose. And so whether it's sidewalks or streets or, you know, curbs or trees or, you know, any of those things, they may be cosmetic when you look at them, but
They're
in the
critical.
bigger scope of things, they are what make up the village and what makes it habitable and pleasurable. And so those are things that you build into the process.
Well, I think a big thing is that we need to read this document, because it does talk about information gathering, which was done at the last meeting, and then it talks about prioritization, right? So under information gathering, it clearly states the village staff and the planning commission are requested to review documents related to the potential capital improvement projects, including grant applications, engineering studies, park and recreation plans, DDA development plan, the village master plan, and recommendations. Each potential project will be outlined in a project summary and description sheet. In addition, information will be provided regarding potential funding sources for each of the projects. Then it goes into the next step, prioritization. After gathering the project summary and description sheet, the projects will be prioritized by a work group composed by the village president, the village clerk, the DPW director, a member of the planning commission, and others identified by the village president. These projects will be prioritized over the following 6 years using the following criteria. So I think we need to prepare ourselves.
Well, and that's
By reading this.
their structure to make
Well,
that
it's very
happen.
similar.
It's very similar, but that's, you know, that's their structure that they have laid out.
So
yes.
really, we're still in the information gathering
Yep.
stage, right? And that's
Yep.
composing a list. Once this list is composed and we're satisfied, then we go into the prioritization, and that will be formed by the village president and a member of this board or this body, along with whoever else he chooses to be on that group study session. So we don't want to get too, I mean, I know we're super excited at the process, but we need to just take our time, go through each step, and make sure that we're doing what is recommended. So Roe, once we've taken this list, we take it to Roe. Roe will give us that next step and say, okay, is this a tier 1 or tier 2? And then maybe council needs to determine a work group or a study session for the individuals involved to take the next step with the capital improvement. So once again, I think we take a look at the list. I did miss skate park. I did see it was on your request there, Miss Everly, my apologies.
Okay.
I did add it to my new list. So I think tonight, if we did see something that was missed on the list from previous meetings, then let's readdress it.
Yep.
Or if there's something that you thought of in the last 30 days from our last meeting that you think is important to be on the list, let's add it. And then let's call Roe and find out what we should do next now that we have the list.
Okay. I have something to say about the list. Another item. I'm not
Okay.
sure where you want to go next, but if we want to just work our way down the list, when it comes to the walkability trails throughout village parks, I just want to say that we've had a loop trail in Waterworks Park now for about 10 years. It was quarter mile. It was put in by Headwaters Trails. It was a chip park, and nobody in the village did anything to maintain it. So it was just viewed as a pain in the ass and rolled over with the mower. So I would say, rather than spending $100,000 on walkability trails that included stuff in the parks, I'd rather see that $100 go towards sidewalks in our more walkable areas. I'd rather have $100,000 go on Maple Street so the kids can get to school.
So I would say that's where it gets prioritized, rather than taken off the list. We go, well, you know what, that's something we could look at maybe in 3 or 4 years, or something that, as we rank things a little bit, maybe that's a 5 instead of a 3 or a 2.
Okay.
And maybe in a couple of years, it moves up to a 3 or a 2, but it starts out on a lower level.
So my understanding with the whole process was, it's kind of like, if Miss Everly wants to remove the $100,000 from the walkability on trails, she could just make that pitch like she's doing, and then we don't have to even include it or rate it at all. We could just remove it completely.
Let me just
If we
add,
think we want to take that
If
off.
that's
as a group.
correct,
I
that's
think
correct.
it
So
should
it's not,
let me just add though, at the
That's being
last
made.
meeting, Cheryl, and as I recall, made the recommendation.
No, I'm being very specific. I'm not against the trails. I'm
Okay.
against them being in the village parks.
So,
And my example was real clear, was a
Yes.
quarter loop park trail in a park. I don't think we should spend any money on that. I think we should spend money on trails, sidewalks, things that connect stuff.
Okay.
Not just,
But you
walking
said the
around in a
money should
circle.
be spent on sidewalks.
and,
Just make the point, trails are one of the biggest things that this community has asked for.
Right.
It did come up at the last meeting, I appreciate it being on here, but I resent it being taken off. I don't think it should be.
well, the reason, so a couple things here. The hyphen for parks doesn't mean parks in general. I put throughout the village hyphen parks.
right.
So
So
it's
and.
not.
But there have
dedicated.
also been talks about putting a loop around Cyclone Park, and I
Well,
just want to say
yeah,
that I don't
yeah, yeah.
think that that's the kind of money we have in this village to spend. That's real nice, but
I
it
was
doesn't.
basing mine off of what Mr. DeSessa presented to us with the
Well, that
trail, the trail loop, which you sent to me in a document after the meeting.
Yes.
And that was that was my intent with throughout the village hyphen parks, was the document that you sent me afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my
But,
question with the walkability is also, because I was not here last meeting, also it was not recorded to watch, so I'm not quite sure
Yeah.
what was spoken about. But I was looking at sidewalks, and are we only looking at Maple Street and Elm Street on sidewalks, or is that available to, are we looking at all the sidewalks?
So
Miss
North
Lacy.
Street, Sherman, and College, there's already funding through grants from the state and Row for water, sewer, storm, and sidewalks.
Okay. And what streets were those? Because I did not get that. I'm
North
sorry.
Street, Sherman, and College is what I'm being told.
Which, that is part of this grant that we are working on through the state. And it would include sidewalks because the sidewalks have to come out as well as the road in order to do
The
the
infrastructure.
infrastructure
underneath.
replacement that needs to be done. So it's part of the whole process there with those.
Angela, to your question, the
Yes.
sidewalks on Maple and Elm Street was what was listed specifically in the DDA list.
Okay.
It said widening to 5 feet, Saginaw, Maple, and Elm. I'm sorry, that's not the DDA list, that's the villages list. The DDA list had some other sidewalk stuff on it.
Okay, well, I know that they had redid, East Maple from the railroad track all the way up to, and they put in the side curbs and that back in 2000. They redid the road, they redid everything underneath.
Yep.
And also put in new sidewalks that were wider at that time in 2000.
So
So
the,
That's.
the
okay,
Maple
be
Street,
24
Doesn't
years.
need to be done.
the Maple Street inclusion may be like from the railroad tracks to Saginaw,
Yeah.
so that
Go
it's,
Maple
it's
Street
more of
that
a,
way Instead of East Maple Street, they're going
Fixing-
west. I don't know.
that section that may not have been done before
'Cause there
in the
is some-
process of redoing stuff all the way up Saginaw Street.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I
Same
know
as
back
the
in
railroad
20,
Huh?
So it's not the
2000.
railroad track, basically.
I think, you know,
Yeah, because they had the whole road closed down because all of us in the neighborhoods had to find certain places to park. They put our mailboxes over at the school, at the elementary school. So we had to go over there and get that, and we had to park our cars over there when they had a lot of the restructuring
Sure.
underneath and that. We used to be right straight across, now we're on an incline. So, because that's also Patterson Drain that goes underneath the road right there.
yep,
The DDA had sidewalk crossing safety at the Grange Hall corner for 100,000 was, I think, their comment on safety or sidewalk.
Yep. Can we please get the downtown restrooms moved to priority number 1?
the what?
So
The
we're-
Downtown
restaurant-
restrooms.
So we're not prioritizing, we're just going on the list, and it is on the list. And that is also an item on the DDA
Yes.
for 150. New restrooms downtown.
So it's my understanding that the restrooms that are currently downtown, are they deeded to the village? I know they're on private property, but I think the village.
They are letting them use it. That was one of the
Stipulations.
agreements, at least for the time being, until they
Probably
can
an
get the new
easement.
ones
think it's an
down
easement.
where the depot is gonna.
I still think there's a legal document that gives us access to it permanently.
Yeah, oh,
Correct?
no, I don't think it was permanent, because it's a private building. I think that was just, you'd have to
I
ask
believe
Jerry.
it was part of the lease because we didn't really think we were gonna need any bigger bathrooms
Yeah.
at the time. I think we expected that they were gonna maintain them and then we
Well, see,
maintain them and,
Yeah, village maintains them,
and there is a document somewhere.
Yeah,
yeah.
somewhere.
I think I have a foolish question.
Never.
Oh, I think this one is. Years after year after year, all right, all sidewalks that have ever been presented have always been concrete. Has anybody ever explored the longevity of putting in asphalt sidewalks?
I think they have a
And what their likelihood, life cost is
lot
versus-
shorter lifespan. Much shorter lifespan.
Okay, but much shorter at the tune of a third the price? You know, to the overall cost of the project, where you can get a lot more done for the buck?
I mean, one place you could look would be the Laugh Trail over at Linden, Argentine, Fenton. I think that is all asphalt.
Yeah. And to Bill's point, you know, the piece that Bill had, he's put together a nice proposal for a 35-mile loop trail that would take in all of the state parks and everything else. And asphalt is certainly what they use on a lot of the
Well, right,
rail trails.
on a trail, yes, but not on a sidewalk in your community. You,
Yeah, see, I just wonder if it could be advantageous, granted, in areas where there's driveways, all right, there where it's gonna get constant heavy use, I can understand that need to be a concrete section.
Yeah.
But areas that are just being walked on, that are not being crossed by vehicle, I don't understand why,
There's probably some
I don't have the
sidewalk
answer to that
standard.
question, but I wrote it on my
Probably some
list.
national sidewalk standard.
possible.
Well, I'll ask Brian Clausen. He would know if there's a reason.
Yeah.
So I made it myself a
Like you say,
note.
it might just be the longevity and then recoding to save the life of it just isn't, you know, so. And granted, asphalt being a petroleum-based product,
Well, it is cheaper than concrete because.
oh, yeah.
But it's very recyclable, even though it's a
Yes, it
petroleum
is.
product.
Anyway, that was just a
Yeah.
thought.
And sticking along with the roads, Mr. Chairman, one of the items, would it be included filling cracks? So North Saginaw, we've got that brand-new road
that's normal maintenance.
that's not
I
a line
would say
item.
that's normal maintenance. That's not
Improved me.
capital improvements, capital ventures, basically.
Although that would be major repairs over 5,000 if you took it all into consideration.
So for my personal driveway, when I've looked, now granted, that's just personal, I'm not doing a whole city, $1 a foot. So to fill it with hot tar. So if you've got a ton of footage that would need to be filled, it would probably over 5,000.
I'd still consider that general maintenance rather than a major project.
I guess, so that we're not straying way out of the intent for tonight, then, going right back to the list that's in front of us. Additions, subtractions is basically what we're looking for.
I want to beat the trails over the head, just because one of the things that we could put in here is the cost of engineering and architectural studies to get us going. We could have Roe give us what is a $1 billion number to put on there, but that's probably where we need to start more than anywhere else when it comes to trails.
That
Nope.
would be just an expenditure in a trails project.
Oh, that kind of goes on a long way, because they don't just map it all out at once. You know, it'll look over at Genesee County, it's like, okay, this is the LAF section, this is the State Bake section, this is the this and that section. But if we don't get something on paper and start to make, figure out, this is here, how do we connect it? And that's what this engineering studies is all about. And then we've got to talk about how do you obtain people's property. If we're going to have a reasonable trail out to the high school, which I think is everybody's dream, there's going to be some taking of land. So that all has to be addressed. So anything to do with trails is going to have
Depending on
to
which
start.
side of the road you run that on, that's not a village issue.
Okay, and
Or-
I'm going to go back to, it's the school is on village property. So
Okay, but all of that property between here
you're
and there is
nitpicking.
not.
You're nitpicking. I'm using that as an example, but any place that we go with a trail across people's personal property is going to be an issue, and we need guidance to us to do that,
But
that
isn't
we
it a
don't
village
already
easement
Okay,
have.
anyway?
could you
One
stop?
at a time, one at a time.
Village easement going out East Holly anyways, village, is it not eastman?
No, there's not.
No.
Okay, okay.
The south side of the road out to the
Sorensen
park,
Park.
to Sorensen Park, is village.
Right.
The north side of the road ends at East Street.
I just thought going out to the high school, but okay, all right, I got you.
The high school is a detached 425 agreement.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did we enter into
I don't know.
They are buried there on the north side.
Yeah, and I think at that point there would have had been an agreement.
No, there was never any 425 agreement for those properties. It was all between the village and, I mean, we got their okey-dokey, but my understanding of theirs was never any easy.
No written agreement.
Probably the township right of way anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably in the
Or-
right of way.
Yeah.
The water
Yeah,
lines
easement.
are probably in the right of way,
All right,
yeah.
Well, I would just really quickly like to second Sherilyn's recommendation or idea, though, that it would be nice to try to put some sort of funding or put this whole hike, trail thing in motion somehow. So just want to put that out there.
well, in order to put that out there, the areas would have to be suggested, all right? And for road to even start, they'd have to have a plan. So we would have to come up with areas specific for them to even work on, and then get a budget number from them to say what that engineering and budgetary number would be for the, basically study of it
Right.
even. In order to do that, to go any further from that, then it would have to go to council to get approval of that expenditure for them to do any work on it.
Well, we have walkability trails already on our list. I think that becomes details within a walkability trails process that, you know, when we get some stuff back, that within that, there can be breakouts of certain things, you know. In 25, 26, we put in a row study and, you know, so we can start to break out things within, just like the Falk Road is just listed as Falk Road. But within Falk Road, there can be 15 different things that go on, you know? And it's what comes up as a priority or a requirement as we're going along. So I think at this point that it's on there is good. And then I think it would be good to maybe have Roe walk us through or start coming back with here's some breakouts that you might be able to find within some of these. You know, just like when I'm talking about sidewalks, that we're not saying, you know, we're going to do all of the sidewalks in the village in 1 year. It's it begins to get broken out into sections of the community or targeted projects that become priorities. And so sidewalks almost stays on perpetually.
Always.
But you begin to schedule
Certain sections.
certain sections that hit the priority level, that then they start going, okay, because that's higher up on the priority to do that section of sidewalk, we need to start planning to put that into, you know, the next year's budget, or what year we choose or think that it fits best. And then when it's scheduled into that budget, then administration knows, okay, for the year 25, 26, we need to try and find a grant or a something that applies so that we can start getting some additional funding for specific projects. And really, until you kind of map out projects, you're just kind of going, well, let's start getting grants for what? You know, and so it helps prioritize things throughout a multi-year, multi-level, you know, it's more than just 5 years, it's
Yeah.
5 or 6 levels deep for each year, and, you know,
I agree with everything you just said, but just personally, going back to the trails thing, I think if we're gonna actually try to do some trails on any level besides just maintenance or adding a little bit here and there, locally, if we really want to try to do this, then I think that we need to somehow get it to row for them to take a separate, they're going to do this process, I know, but separate or included in this, some sort of look at the trails as to what can be done and sort of the next steps. Because I could propose something till the cows come home, but
Right.
that may be where it sits, so. And I see in there, I mean, frankly, you sort of need help, obviously, to get something that's off the ground. And do people think that more trails are a good thing? It's as easy as that, in my opinion, or not. If people don't like it, hey, let's just drop it and move on. But I think people want more trails. This plan, just real quick, and I'll get off that, I know we're not here to talk about that, but it's maybe pie in the sky, but it talks about grants. It's not talking about trying to raise taxes, anything like that. Now, down the road, may that be some sort of maintenance fee be involved? Yeah, I know, but the plan itself talks about state grants, maybe private conservatory grants, that sort of thing. And it's dependent on that. If they don't come, then maybe it doesn't get done. So,
Right. Well, and that's the way virtually everything on our list is.
Sure,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
But at least, for instance, the depot has the advantage. You guys are well along in the process.
Right.
It's a
We've
known-
kind of been working on this,
Right.
this general
Decades.
section of this, this current phase of this, we're in almost 5 years. We're 5 years in on that. And it's just now looking like it's coming to fruition.
So basically, from my standpoint of listening to everybody so far, all right, and what Jeremy is saying next steps are, is either, yes, we agree with this list and let's move forward with having Roe put something together, or are we wanting something off of this list?
I guess the only thing, and this is a little bit to Jim's point, there's a lot of park nicey things on here. And from my understanding from the park commission meetings and looking at the survey and everything they did, the bathroom improvement at Lakeside Park, I think should be number one. I would like to see us stand up and say, if we're gonna do anything in our parks, let's make that bathroom a priority. I mean, we spent all the money on the new jungle gym, but if you can't take the kid into the bathroom safely and feel comfortable, they're still not gonna go there.
So add that as another item.
It's on there.
It's already on
It's
there.
on there.
It's already on there? Oh.
Yeah, it's like the third one from the bottom, but, if I was gonna pencil in something for parks for 24, 25,
Yeah.
it'd be that.
And we can note that, but I think Jeremy's suggesting we don't prioritize tonight.
Yeah.
But I'd like for one to say, yeah, I mean, if that's what we're doing, I think the list is great. And again, thank you for putting that together.
Yes.
And I agree with that, yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I did miss one thing, and maybe more, but I'm just reviewing administration's list, and Mr. Koskela did bring up the point of the lift station replacements. And I do see that I missed, Brian Clausen did request 2 lift station replacements at Morrison and LeGrand. So I'm going to add that to the list. I know,
Do we have a dollar associated with it?
not on this list here, but that doesn't mean I can't get it. And I'm going to add the skate park that I missed, and if there's any additional items that this commission would like to see added.
Did you, as, we're talking about the skate park, all right? Did we have a recommended location for it?
Well, it would have to go on village property
Yeah.
somewhere unless a private
And
entity
that
came
would-
forward and
If
said
it's in a
that.
park, it'd be up to parks to work that out. That's not our role even in this.
But if we found a grant and said, hey, we got 50,000 to put a skate park in to the parks, I'm sure they would find some location to put it, right? So,
It'll appear.
I do have, at the last meeting, there was a question, and I apologize, I don't remember who asked it, but they did ask about where the survey, or how the survey was posted.
Which survey?
The park survey?
Yes, the park survey.
Oh.
And we did reach out to Ms. Cole, and she said that she created a Google form for the survey, then shared the link on social media, the village website, village newsletter. We made a QR code and had it and hard copies at various events. So that was her response to the answer of how the park survey was distributed to the village residents. I apologize who asked that, and I don't remember, but I did want to make sure that we did get that answer, that question answered.
I have one question about the, and I know it's already done, but the North Street, the Sherman and College Street, getting the makeovers for the piping and the sidewalks. Does that include Sherman Street all the way down to the new middle school?
Ms. Everly, I have to be honest, I don't know. I was
Because
just
there's no
given a list.
sidewalks.
So it just says North Street, Sherman College, water, sewer, storm, sidewalk infrastructure repair and replacement. So it doesn't give me exact locations.
Okay.
I don't know if
I
Mr.
don't
Kinnaman knows.
remember from the charts that Roe brought to us and showed us exactly how far down it went.
Who's us?
Village Council.
Okay.
It came to council because we had to authorize the seeking of the grants.
Okay.
And so this is our second attempt at this. The first attempt came back, we did not qualify for the grants. We're too well off as a community,
Which is
believe it or not,
Interesting.
Okay.
to qualify. It's a point-based system, and we did not qualify. But we did qualify for like a loan of only like 55%.
Okay.
So they have taken, Roe took this back and has reevaluated it and found other ways and things to list in it that could qualify us for the money.
Okay.
For a grant. Some of it is because they specifically added and listed that a lot of the service lines to homes in those areas are probably lead.
Okay.
And so that just jumps you up a lot higher on a list because you're wanting to replace those as part of the project. And so, and a couple other things that I don't remember what all they were, but those types of things they did to enhance that request and have submitted it again.
Okay.
And so, because it takes village council action approval in order to allow that grant process to happen, that presentation was done to council.
Okay.
So the consensus is to add those few items to the list and send it to Roe for their
Next phase.
next phase of documentation, to come back to us, basically.
Okay, thank you.
I like that.
Is everybody agreed about that?
Okay.
Yes? No?
Now is, if we're moving on, can we move on? I'm going to
Well-
make a motion
All right, for
under
the
new
business
business.
for, yes.
And the first motion that has to be made
Is
is,
to amend it.
I make a motion to amend the agenda to include excusing Koskela from the previous meeting.
I second that motion.
Motion and
All in
second.
favor?
Aye. Now I'll make the motion to excuse Koskela from the previous meeting.
We need a second?
Second.
Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So moved.
There we go.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, perhaps if we could establish some rules or some procedures. I know it didn't work out because the village did not have internet that day. I contacted them. But is there a procedure we could set up that if we are going to miss a meeting, we can send someone a message? I didn't really, like today, I was going to miss the message. When I got stuck for the train, I was like, well, let me just message everyone in my phone that I have. So they knew I was coming. But in the future, should we message 2 people? Should we message, what would
Well,
the
I
best
think
way to
your
do it?
situation was really unique, Jim, because they were going through the village
Okay.
move, right? Normally, I can't think of a time that we've ever not had that communication go through. I think it was just kind of that fluke situation. I would say maybe a secondary default. I think all of you have my personal cell phone stored in your phone. Oh, okay, well, it's on my business card. I can hand it out afterwards.
Just go ahead and read it off.
Yeah.
No.
But either myself or the chair, I think it would be acceptable to reach out to
Okay.
us directly if you were unsuccessful with that email transaction. And you didn't know it at that time, and we didn't know it until the next day when our stuff went back up live, so.
Yeah, just like tonight, I was gonna be late also. I tried calling you, you didn't answer, so then I called Jeremy.
That's interesting, because it never rang.
Pay your bill.
Again.
So, all right, so from there, I guess we go on to training, which there was nothing here. Reports, ZBA, did anybody, and hopefully my voice is coming out where everybody can hear it.
I don't think ZBA has met yet.
They're gonna meet, we have a meeting scheduled for June, so we'll have an update for you then.
Okay. DDA,
They had a meeting, and they just did their informational annual report. Nick Klimp did, and discussed the accomplishments and the goals that they have and have had. They're going to have the election of officers, but they deferred that until the next meeting.
okay.
There are a couple new people on there.
Yeah.
Yes, there's going to be a couple new people, but they did for the chair and that they're having something for this next meeting for doing the officers.
Council,
I was going to say what we were doing, but I don't remember. Sorry. I've been so sucked into what we talked about here
That's a
tonight.
5-hour
that-
meeting, Mr.
Oh, my
Yes.
gosh.
Yeah,
It's a very long
Yeah.
meeting.
that was,
We had a meeting that went 4 hours and 45 minutes.
What the hell?
It was just that many items of simpler things.
there was just a lot of discussions.
A lot of discussion.
People, no,
No.
at council.
Council, yeah, I was there.
Yeah. We did postpone any decision on the cityhood process. The request was to bring it to put on the ballot in November, and collectively, we felt we needed more data-type information in the report than what was presented.
Yep,
And so
you ask administration to
we postponed it.
pony up some money. I'd like to say something about council meeting that I think affects planning. The very beginning of the meeting was taken up probably almost the first hour with people complaining about the venue on 11. You know, it's been spot zoned commercial in a residential neighborhood, and they had a lot of problems. This is Angela's neighborhood. I shouldn't be
Yes.
telling her story. But from a planning perspective, I don't understand why that business doesn't have to have the number of parking spaces commensurate with the activity that they're carrying on. And for example, I talked to Ken McKay, and when he was building his new hardware store, we required 50 parking spaces. They have 35. And then, along with that, they also built another, venue on the north end of that building, probably holds another 200 people, and none of that came through planning. And I would just like to know why. And it's a mess, and I think that we've missed some of the steps that are supposed to be here to protect people in their neighborhoods.
That I can't answer with why any additional space other than, I think the original that was presented to us was renovating the entire building, but there was no additional structures that I remember being added in.
I just watched the first meeting that was before the, when you guys said we're gonna postpone the vote. And I think they said they had 75 on site. So whether or not they still have 75, at the time they did.
75 what?
Parking spots
On site?
on site is what I believe is what I what I do recall.
Someone else told me there were 35, they just recently
I
counted
do
them.
know that there's staff parking in that parking lot as well, which takes up quite a few of those spots. So
This was
that
also
might
a-
be where the 35, 75 is coming from, because they have all their staff parked there as well.
That's going off my recollection. So I just watched this within the past week, but I think the vote was, 27 or 2017, I believe, or something like that. So something could have changed since then.
5 or 6 years
Yeah,
ago.
so something could have changed in the past, whatever years.
Yeah.
But
And I actually don't remember either for sure, but it seems to me with them doing the shuttle and using the school's parking to shuttle from,
Yes.
that's
it
what that,
seems to me there was some type of agreement
There was.
agreed to on that,
Yeah.
at the KRC, there was an agreement in place.
and that in itself, according to what was said at the time, would alleviate the necessity of street parking that everybody was complaining about.
But that's not what they're doing.
Yeah, that is not what is happening
Well,
right now, so.
And when that was said, I think we, I don't know, it sounds like a escape, but street parking is public, and in reality, we as a commission have no say-so on who could use the street parking.
The issue with the parking, though, is not that they're parking on the street, they're parking on both sides of the street. They are putting signs in the middle of the road. They are telling residents that roads are closed to them to drive down. The only people that can go down that residential street are people who are valet parking. That's what the issue is becoming. They're parking very illegally, and like I said at the
That would be a police issue.
well, at the council meeting, that is what I said. I do not believe that this is a venue
Right.
problem, that this is an enforcement problem, and if the enforcement of our police are able to do that, then they need to be doing the tickets, they need to be writing issues. They are aware, and from what I talked to Chief Narsh after that meeting, and since then, that they are on top of it and that they are working out a parking plan that is in place. My concern is that they're planning on parking here, and if we are talking about a tot lot being here, we're talking about a lot of cars coming in while we have little toddlers also in the park. So that is one of my concerns on that, but that is not something that we can handle, I don't think.
And I guess from a planning perspective, what I would like as an answer to my question is, how did they get to build the addition without coming through planning?
That I do not.
I don't have an answer. I wasn't the building official.
The additional structure, like I say, that was never on the list originally.
Yeah.
And you never approved one?
Correct.
Thank you.
Not that I remember.
Not that anybody remembers.
It did not come through this board, this commission.
no, I'm not familiar. Should it have?
I believe it should have.
Should
I don't
have.
know of any other
Yes.
commercial building that's been able to add on without coming through planning.
Yeah.
I don't know what's the level of qualification for it to come before us and not
It would be a site plan amendment. So you'll be seeing one in the next few months for a commercial property that's proposing a site plan amendment for an additional accessory structure.
Okay.
My guess is they propose it just as an addition, as a non-enclosed addition.
But it is enclosed.
It's enclosed.
Is it
It is
Oh, yeah,
enclosed.
Yeah.
I wasn't part of the
It's
discussion,
wired up,
so I
it's
can't,
electrical, it's got everything.
I don't have information. It was not my decision
Yeah, maybe have
or
to do some FOIAs.
approval.
I do not. But with all that said, how do we find out?
I'm sure it's just a record review. What am I finding out, though, just to be clear?
Why they didn't have to go through planning.
I don't have the answer. I don't know. I wasn't part of the review process, so I can dig and see if I can find some record of why it didn't go, but I don't know.
If you would, please, I'd appreciate
Yep,
it.
I have it on my list.
Thank you.
Next is Parks.
All right, moving on. Parks Commission. Was there anything?
They put up a new awning thing in Waterworks Park. It's right there by the parking lot, so it's not, you don't have to go over the bridge to get to it, it's right there. And there's a moonlight paddle tomorrow night from Waterworks Park with the Friends of the Shiawassee do it. And on Saturday, there's a fundraiser to the Veterans Resource Center at Waterworks Park. It's going to be a paddle from Waterworks out to Fish Lake. $25. All I know about paddles.
Bring your own equipment.
Yeah.
They just posted that up with it
Oh,
today.
yeah, bring your own
Bring
stuff.
your own equipment. They
Yep.
do not have stuff to rent.
Yeah, they'll shuttle us back to Holly, but we got to bring our own boats.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to Commissioner and staff comments. So we can start down with Angela.
One of my questions would be, what is going with the mobile on the corner of Grange Hall and North Howard Road?
New fuel tanks
Okay.
and new pumps.
And new awnings?
No, they removed part of the awning because they're reducing the amount of pumps that they're gonna have
Okay. Okay,
to help with the turning.
great. Okay, thank you.
And I did talk to Rowe, and they felt that that did not need planning commission approval because it was all underground work, other than the awning.
Okay, thank you.
And they are doing a build out on the interior of this station, but that,
A remodel.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
That was it. Thank you so much.
No?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It looks like the marathon at Grange Hall now is putting blocks out, so hopefully we'll see
Yep.
some dust over there soon. That'll be nice. I did want to thank Ms. Wallace, too, for mentioning to me privately before the meeting today about the excused absence and the difference between unexcused, so thank you for that. Nothing else? Thank you.
Okay. Richard?
Nothing. I'm done.
You've talked enough tonight, is that
I
it?
think so.
Excuse me. All right.
Well, I have one. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering, when is the dispensary? Have you heard anything more?
Actually, today, they were in the office, and I would anticipate documentation submittal in probably the next 30 days or less.
Okay, all right. That was my only thing. Thank you.
Stole my question, but I do have a follow-up. So, the work, is there something about a one-year shovel in the ground requirement once?
Or extension from the commission, yes.
Okay. And obviously it hasn't come into play.
Shovel in the ground, I don't believe that's the correct term. I believe what it says is submittal of documentation for permit approval.
Okay.
So I've been meeting with that team for probably 2.5 months, consistently, because the property changed hands, and they wanted to know if they would be able to, still be able to move forward because the property changed hands, with the exact site plan that was approved from this commission.
Okay.
And answer was yes. Just because they changed the name does not constitute for them to come back in front of this board to present the exact same site plan that was approved.
Okay, makes sense, but I would like this board to consider, just throwing this out there as a possible thing to consider in the future along those lines is, I understand this is sort of a trend nationally where these cannabis places do this. They come in and get permits, but it's never intended that they stay in open business. It's speculative to make money selling their business. Now, I'm not saying that we can impede that process, it's capitalism, but I think there are certain things, practices that they do that we may want to take a look at, perhaps having some sort of amendment to our local ordinances that restrict some of the things they do along those lines. I just think we may need to take a closer look at that and see if there's anything we could do is all.
So that would be something that would come from council, not this commission.
Okay.
As far as adjusting the marijuana ordinance. That was a council action. So from what I've been told, they're moving forward full steam ahead. So we met with them today, and it's been consistent
There is
throughout.
built into the ordinance that it's an annual renewal anyhow.
And we're only allowed 2 in the village, so I don't think once,
Sure.
Two dispensaries.
right.
And so with that annual renewal, every year that has to come before us again to be renewed
The council.
to council. And if nothing has happened to it, then we can deny that and open that license back up. You know, that's always a possibility. And I think that got hung over their head this time too, that we need to see some work start on that project. And, you know, to be fair to them as well, if you remember, their initial presentation to us was to rehab the building they had. And then when they started that process, they found that that was not going to be possible. So then they had to come to us again, which put more time in there, and then they had to start their whole RFPs out again to get new bids and basically start over getting on a contractor's timeframe list. And so, you know, that I think has taken more time than they had expected.
I don't think anybody's busting their butt to get it done.
Well, if they have it open by September, the village gets a substantial amount of money. So I do know that.
If they have it open by September or
Yes.
not open?
Open.
Yes, opened. That's.
So we lose as a
That's one of the
community.
same situations that
Right.
happened with Loom, was that I think it's the end of September
State
Is-
fiscal year.
is the fiscal year for the marijuana taxing stuff.
Right.
And so something has to be open, in operation, doing business prior to that date, even if it's like one day before,
Okay,
for the village to get our share of the tax money, that extra
Right.
tax money
but
that's been
that's
collected.
exactly Bill's point. These people have been sitting on this property, one entity, then the next, for 2 years, so we didn't get any money from that. We couldn't sell it to anybody else. Nothing's happening with it.
Well, I think what happened
I
there
think
was
we're getting screwed. Sorry.
they had full intentions. Once they realized that they weren't going to be able to do what they wanted to do with that building as existing,
But it took them darn near a year to get to that point.
debatable, but yes, it's been a
I
drawn-out
know,
process.
nobody is busting their butt to get it done,
Okay.
okay?
That's your opinion. I'll let
It's
you.
my opinion.
Fair.
What can we do to force that?
You can.
Well, that's what Bill was saying. If we had something that said, okay, you get to sit on this property for a year, we've given you all your approvals, your year is up, and you haven't done anything, now you either pay a big penalty, or we get your approvals revoked and you start all over again. But we're very generous. We just, as Jeremy said, all they gotta do after a year is say, oh, but we're still gonna do it, and we're still sitting on empty
Actually,
land that's
that's
not
not-
producing anything.
That's not quite the case.
It's close.
Because it does have to come before the village council again, and if they have not moved on it, it's up to the village council to deny a renewal on that license.
Okay, well, we're at
That's,
2 years.
that's built in there.
And has it been renewed once before?
It was renewed, and it was the middle of tons of circumstances that put them in that situation.
So when is the next renewal up?
In the next,
End of September,
no,
wouldn't it be?
no. We approved those licenses in June.
So it should be on the next
So-
council
Next
meeting.
one.
Okay.
It- Those should be coming up on the next council meeting.
If I'm not mistaken, the proper tool that's available to us prior to approval, of site plans is a performance bond.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
That is something that we have as a tool of anything that we think could get drug out to require that as part of the approval.
Is that something our commission could require?
Yes.
Is that done administratively now? I've never seen that come before.
I'd have to do some research, I don't have.
It's very rarely used because it's a negative connotation,
Right.
but it is a tool we have, if I remember.
Interesting.
I think the aspect of potentially losing their license from the council, that would be, you would think would make them move, but. Because then it opens up the whole application process again, wouldn't it?
So I think there are things that are out there, just
We're learning.
we, as I've said before, we are not necessarily here just to be nice guys and thank you for your business,
Yeah.
but we're here to bring in the right businesses and the right personalities, I guess.
To make our community better.
Right. And granted, everybody has opinions, doesn't mean they're right, it's just, it's still our job as a commission to have comments and have discussion and pros and cons, and again, it's, a vote, and that's how this works.
And one more question along those lines, maybe it's a little too much in the woods, but so, let's say an applicant were to lose they have a permit, if they're not acting on it, time goes by. Let's say they actually lose their license or we're pending action against them, does that prevent them from still selling it? Because I doubt it does. If it prevents them from opening and selling, but guess what? Can they still do this speculative money thing? And that's why I brought it up to begin with.
What do you mean by speculative?
I mean, the whole idea of, and I'm not saying this applies to this case, by the way, I want to make that clear, it's taken a long time, but my point is, there are other cannabis companies supposedly around the country who never intend to open. So it's a process, to Sherilyn's point, it's not on the tax rolls, it's dragging out, but their intent from the beginning is to get the permit and then sell it. It's like the liquor permits.
Ours is not able to be sold that way. Our licenses are not able to be sold.
But I mean, I'm just talking about a case just like we're
Property.
talking about here, the property was.
It was sold.
It was
They
sold.
But not the license.
Not the
The
license.
license is
And
different than the building.
Okay, well, that's
we
my point.
reviewed that in council. That was a reviewed, legal counsel brought that to us. And because it was not, well, and it is in there that it can be sold, but we have to approve that sale.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a full sale, it was a merger. And the merger, the original company still retained the operating rights. It just has a new umbrella parent company. And so it's still, the license is still the original people.
Still Cloud
but
Cannabis.
It's still Cloud Cannabis, but they are now owned by someone else.
By Timber Cannabis, correct?
But if
I-
Timber?
Yeah,
Chamber Cannabis?
I don't remember who it was
Lab.
who
So if I
purchased
understand
it,
you,
but
Richard, if Company A gets the permit and then, again, surreptitiously decides that they're gonna trade this off somehow, they can't do that without this coming back to council?
Correct.
Okay.
correct.
And that's the luxury of us by allowing us to create our own ordinance rather than it being forced at the
Yes.
election
Yep.
by them
And
creating.
that's why we
their-
did the ordinance, so we would have more
That's,
control.
that's why,
100%.
that's the only reason why I was for that process, was because I didn't want them to write our ordinance. We wrote our ordinance.
May I ask a question? Because I've watched or, been at the last several council meetings, and I don't remember that coming before council. Was that in a closed session?
Yes,
That's what I thought. So the public was not aware of that?
it's right.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
I have one more thing from the council meeting. Where the depot's gonna be is currently a billboard. And the village administration was asking for a swap. They're gonna take that land where the little billboard sits across from the Moose, and then swap them the land that's underneath and in front of the water tower. So between Broad Street and the water tower is where that billboard's gonna move to. I don't like it. I don't know why we have to do that. I'm gonna make sure that it's gonna abide by the sign ordinances. Where it is right now, it sits back and it's not really obtrusive. Are there rules that it has to be so far back off of the road, and will they have to abide by those? And
Yeah,
we
it's already been
promise-
through that approval process.
Went to zoning?
No, it goes to the building department,
It goes to the building department, and it's gonna meet all of our zoning issues.
sign ordinance.
And lights and everything?
And are we-
Lights and everything, and
Are they gonna cut down all the trees underneath the water tower to accommodate it?
And it's gonna be the same height.
Okay,
That was the big stipulation when I was part of that discussion, was it wasn't gonna be elevated any higher than what it is now.
all right, because the discussion at the council meeting, I believe you guys sent it back because there was still stuff in the contract that said they'd be allowed to attach antennas
Oh, I
and
don't know
things
about
to
that.
it.
yeah.
That wasn't part of the submittal.
Well, that's
that they
why
had.
I'm asking the question, because it looked like it was the boilerplate language of the billboard company, the sign company, that we were just okey-dokeying, and I want to make sure that that's not what's going to happen, that we're going to have a sign ordinance be followed.
The last submittal of the documentation that I seen did not show any antennas on it.
Okay?
That would
Am I
be-
right? Didn't
that
you
would
send
be-
it
Right,
back?
and that's what we said we wanted done
Unless
to
they-
that.
That would
Contract.
be the stipulation of height that we did.
Yeah, so I brought that up. I think there has been other instances where utility companies get permission to put like high-tension power lines. And they have permission to do whatever they want with the high-tension power line. Well, then they just put the antenna up on top. So that was my big concern. We didn't give another company permission to put up, even if it was a small cell site or whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's
and I
already
think
cell
that was-
service on the
That
water
was a
tower.
good idea, yes.
There's already antennas on the water tower now.
Yeah.
They would be just right there next to it.
Yeah, that, that thing at 15 feet off the ground, when you've already got the antennas that are 50 feet off the ground, are pointless, but
Technology
it's
changes.
still,
I'm just
it
going to
is
say
still,
technology changes. You don't know.
it is
what's
still
gonna
good that
Yeah.
that change got into the request. Mhm. And we didn't sell land to them.
be. It was,
It's an easement. It was an easement swap.
yeah.
And when the village purchased that property where it currently sits, where the depot is going from the railroad, that billboard company had a perpetual easement agreement that sign sits there. And so in order to break that easement, we needed to provide an alternative.
It was my understanding to do that,
pretty much.
I'm gonna measure it.
Anything else? Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. I really didn't have anything. The only question I had is on I believe the address is on Rosette, the Forever Woodworking Shop.
Oh, okay.
Is that complete, the CFO?
Yes. Yes.
He is requesting an exemption at zoning though for his fence.
And he's gonna come back here for a site plan amendment.
All right.
Probably sorry he bought
I
it.
think it's a temporary
Double
C of O,
frontage
Mr.
lot.
Akonsky. I think he had to put up numerics, and I think there was something else he had, real super minor. But I think it's a temp. I don't think it was a full C of O.
Okay. I just, I know that's another site that has drug on forever, and I just didn't know if he had a CFO where he's able to just move it and start doing whatever he wanted to do.
He did have permission to move his stuff in, because the inside of the building did not have any violations. It was exterior. I think there was a light on the back for the egress, and then numerics on the front.
All right, so that's all I had. Moving on to the last item being public comment again,
Staff and commission.
or staff, sorry. I can't remember their titles, man. Anything you have?
Nope, nothing to report.
Come on, Marlo, you gotta have something.
That was the next item right there. All right, all in favor of adjourned, we're going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Funny. You gotta have something, Marlo.
At 7:45.
It's a dear.